Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Subscription Box Basics. Today, I have a very special guest on. And the reason why I'm talking to her is one, I met her at Sub Summit, which is just an awesome place to network with other people in the subscription box industry. But two, she's involved in the book publishing industry. And if you know anything about my background with Hustle Grow, we included a book in every single box for years and years. And now I know a lot of you listening also buy books for your subscription boxes. And so that's why I wanted to have this conversation. I would like to welcome Carrie Severson. She is the co-founder of the Indie Book Box. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Hi, everyone.
This is going to be the first time that a lot of them are meeting you. So why don't you take a minute to introduce yourself, and then we'll talk more about the Indie Book Box and the service it provides.
Cool. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a published author. I've been in the storytelling space for 30 years as a professional author. And my background is in storytelling, marketing, PR. I launched a nonprofit actually in 2011 to support girls in their girl-on-girl bullying. It was a nonprofit that grew nationally. And I hit this bubble of bullying when it was in the spotlight. And my little organization blew up nationally, and I burned out as a result. Did not have the infrastructure put in place to sustain the growth, to answer, you name it, we did it, partnering with national organizations, flying all over the place, tons of media, lots of exposure, but I burned out pretty hard as a result of it. So I actually wrote a book about my burnout journey, and it was received really well. I put it out into the marketplace, and as a result, my book was picked up by subscription boxes.
Oh, nice.
I published it last year, right when, burnout is still a really hot topic.
For
so
sure.
Mental health boxes, self-care boxes, and I think the subscription box industry is a disruptor of the publishing industry. And as a published author, I look at subscription boxes as non-traditional sales. So I went down this rabbit hole in 2022, learning everything I could about the subscription industry, figuring out how I could be a part of it. And the Indie Book Box is a brand new business. Me and my partner, Jay Newbell, started it in May of 2023 to answer the call between how do indie and self-published authors get into this, huge business,
Right.
the subscription industry, if they don't have anyone out here fighting for them in the trenches with them, because so many boxes are going to bigger publishers. And then there's this whole behind the scenes thing. And so Indie Book Box was born based on my personal experience of working with boxes directly and being an author myself. And so now we represent authors, and we go out and we pitch boxes their books. It's going really cool.
Okay, before we dive too much into it, you didn't tell us the name of your book.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Unapologetically Enough. Thank you very much.
Perfect. I love that. Okay, we're going to have to link to that. So if anyone is interested in reading that, which I definitely want to, I can relate to that whole burnout thing.
Yeah.
I like to work in seasons of hustle and seasons of rest. And that's a learned behavior because of burnout in the past.
Yeah.
I would just hustle. So like a hustle culture dropout, because I just don't think that it's healthy. So I applaud you for writing about that. And I cannot wait to read that book.
Thank you.
So the Indie Book Box, okay, it is a marketing service, right? It is not an actual box, correct?
Not yet. It is. Okay. We do plan on launching a box, but cool. We're probably a year to 2 years down the road on that. It is in the works, which is why we called it Indie Book Box, because eventually we want to be able to have our own box, have the authors, and sort of be on both sides of that.
Well, you know where to go when you need to learn about launching your subscription box. I got you. Okay, so tell us about the service that you and Jane through Indie Book Box provide.
Okay, so authors or publishers come to us, and we really like nonfiction books. We know that's a great space. If it's a new fiction book that hasn't yet been published, we'll look at that as well. We have very specific guidelines. We're interested in 5x8 or 5x5x8. So we know that it fits in the box.
Yep.
We're interested in, 200 pages or less, self-help, self-care, mental health, happiness, things like this. Unless we're also looking at leadership, very specific guidelines that we know boxes are interested in including. Workbooks are really popular as well. And so we're taking on these clients monthly, and we work with the boxes on their themes. We send out books to boxes specifically for consideration or review. Mm-hmm. When a box comes to us and says, hey, I have 350 subscribers that I would love to include this with, we then work with the author on fulfilling that order in terms of current inventory, finding the best printer for the best price, and working with that budget that the box has. The author gets that piece covered, the printing covered, and everyone walks away feeling fulfilled, in budget, a little profitable, and making an impact with their message, which is why authors create what they create. So
this is brilliant. Well. I really think it's brilliant because I can attest to the time and effort that it takes to source a book for every single box. I was building relationships with publishers. I was building relationships with authors. I was buying some of them online. It's doable, but it was taking me a lot of time. I can imagine how much time that this would have saved me as a box owner trying to find the right books, because I could come to you and say, hey, these are the themes, these are the topics that I'm looking for.
Yep.
And you have a portfolio of authors and books that you can just dive right into. So, yep. And I can imagine how impactful it is for authors as well. Like on the flip side, it just feels like such a win.
Yeah. And there are, the big publishers are doing this, but they're doing it at author copy price. So that $850 mark. And when you're talking about 500 copies, that gets really pricey for the box. The authors don't always see that. And so this is eliminating a lot of pain points that are currently in the system. And like I said, when this started happening for me in 2022, I looked at it as a disruptor. I was like, oh, I know how to do this. So Indie Books Box is really utilizing all of the skills I have, having been in this business for so long, as a publicist, as a marketer, as an author, as an entrepreneur, knowing, when I have like Sparkle Hustle Grow is a client of ours, actually. And so they're not interested in fiction. They're not interested in, certain types of books. I have very specific guidelines of what they're looking for, and I pitch them only what they're looking for.
Love it.
Same thing with one of our boxes, Passion and Growth. So it's on and on.
She was one of our boot campers.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So she's been through our program. And I think that this just really streamlines things, and it's giving the box owners a go-to place instead of being so scattered and seeing what sticks. Like, is this book going to fit? Is this going to fit the budget and physically going to fit? Yeah. One of my biggest challenges was I had to pass up on a lot of the books that I wanted to put in the box, but they were maybe published by some of the larger publishing houses. Mm-hmm. And at my quantities, somewhere around 1,500, I still couldn't get the pricing right. And so I would pass up all these books, or the size of the book. You had mentioned that you specifically look for like 5x8 or 5.5 by 8.5.
Yep.
I was looking for the same things because the Sparkle Hustle Grow box, when I was running it, and it still is, was 6x9x3. And so a lot of hardback books aren't going to fit.
Right. We look at when I take on a book, and I'm the decision maker in that of like what books we do take on, because I've been doing this for so long, and more than just pitching boxes, but like understanding, I also run a publishing house. And so I understand the weight of a book, the trim of a book, the cost of production and the paper and all of that jazz, that if I'm taking on a book that's heavy, that's big, that it has thick paper, all of that goes against what we're trying to do here, which is print great quality for the least expensive possible, have good relationships with printers. And a lot of authors think that the bigger the book, the better, because it's going to take up space and their spine is going to be great. And we're just no longer in that.
Yep.
We're not there anymore. So I wish more publishers talk to their authors before they create that and get ahead of it, so they're not creating 6x9 books. My book is 8x5 and it's 308 pages. And so it is big. If I knew then what I know now, I would probably have cut 40 pages out of it, but
Sure.
It's under a pound. It's only 12 ounces. It's not, pushing boxes up into a different weight class. Those are all things that I look at.
Yeah. And you've got this unique experience that you can look from the publishing side and now from the subscription box side. So
Yes.
take us a step back and how did this get started and how did you meet Jane and what's her role in the business?
Yeah. So Jane is a super powerful woman. She runs a business called Bedside Reading. And so I run a publishing house. She runs a marketing agency for books, and we have similar clients. And so she calls me out of the blue and she's like, hey, I just want to introduce myself. This is what I'm doing. I like creating relationships with publishers. And this was in the beginning of 2023. And I was like, well, this is where I want to take my business. I want to learn more about the subscription industry. I see this taking over bookstores. I think this is where people are putting their money. There's something happening here. I feel like we're at the beginning of it and I want to be a part of it. And so she's like, my body is filled with goosebumps. I have to meet you. We have to talk. And I was speaking at the Independent Book Publishing Association conference in San Diego 2 months after she and I had our first call. And so she came out, I came out, we had a brainstorm, and it just sort of one thing after another. And it just sort of, popped just right away out of the gate. This is what we can do. And we launched in May of 2023. We currently have probably, I don't know, I think 35 clients already. Mm-hmm. And in terms of deals that we've been able to secure, we have 5 boxes already, 1 already out, coming out before December of 2023, and another 5,000 copies pending for January of 2024. So nice. It's going really well. And there's more subscription boxes popping up every day, as you know, and we're working with some boxes that have a list of 10 all the way up to 6,000. So it's going great. It's very
That's
cool.
awesome. Obviously you are filling a gap in the market, something that as box owners, we could really jump on board. So let's talk a little bit more about the benefits to the box owner for using your services. Because the obvious one for me is to streamline things, because there's so much involved in relationship building. You already have the relationship, all those things that you talked about, like trim and paper. And so what do you think some of the benefits, like the biggest benefits are to the subscription box owner who would be our listener?
So I think for your listeners, the big is the time element of not having to look at other boxes to see what other people are doing, or not having to scroll through Amazon to find the best thing, the hottest thing,
scroll hole,
or really know what's trending, what's out there. If you send us like a list of themes that you have, which other boxes have done, and they're literally like, what do you have? If I don't have anything, I'm going to be upfront. But at the same time, knowing what your theme is, that's going to sort of, when I meet an author, that just happened. Mm-hmm. I met an author and I'm like, you know what? Actually, I know so-and-so is looking for this in March of 2024. It would be about 350 books. This is what we're looking at. And so we really are acting as this agent in this in-between space between the author and the box, and eliminating a lot of time for the box owners, and like you said, streamlining and understanding the business and everything from your weight class, keeping things under certain weights, and your budget.
I was going to ask you about that. Like, do you play a part in negotiating? Because I know when I would develop relationships with the publishers, I would definitely negotiate with them. I would say, if I commit 4 of the 12 months this year to your authors, can I get a deeper discount? And so that took a lot of back and forth, a lot of time and effort. So do you play a part in the budget as well?
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. I usually find up front what budgets are so that I know that will determine what books I'm going to pitch you. Because if your budget is, let's say, $4 a book, and I don't want to pitch you something that I know isn't going to fit that budget. And then we're we have a lot of clients that have current inventory. And so moving current inventory is something that is really going to be a variant depending on your timing. So if you're looking for something already for December, and that means that I have to fulfill something pretty much by October 1st, because the pipeline of printing and all of those elements, it's not like I can just turn over 500 copies from a printing press tomorrow, right?
So what is that timeline? Like, are you saying it's a couple months there?
Yeah, typically I would say 6 weeks is like, for the States. If I have to print overseas, we're talking like 4 months. And for the bigger quantities, the like 6,000 to 10,000 overseas is something that we can do. We just need a longer lead time.
Yeah. So what are some of the prices that you're seeing? Like, just ballpark, is it a couple bucks to like 8, 9?
Yep. We've done $2 a book all the way up to $9 a book.
Okay.
So it depends on, there's a box in Alaska, and shipping to Alaska has a lot to do with that. And so a lot of that cost comes down to shipping. So
sure. Okay. This all makes sense. And I think that a lot of our listeners could really take advantage of this. So if we have a listener that either sources books for their box, or you never know, we might have an author listening, what kind of steps should they take to get connected with you?
So indiebookbox.com has all of our current books listed. We list all of our books right there with links to various retailers. You can check out our books there. You're able to fill out a form on indiebookbox.com. But I'm Carrie Severson. I'm all over. Unapologetically Enough is my book. You're welcome to find me over there, connect with me, send me an email. I would love to learn about things that you've got going on and what you're looking for. And, we'd be happy to help you get sourced. Okay.
We'll make sure that we put all the relevant links in the show notes. If you are a box owner, do they have to fill out an application to become a client? They just reach out and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Okay. And then if you're an author, I'm assuming that you fill out an application to become a client.
Yep.
That makes so much sense. I'm really, actually, when we met and you told me what you were doing, I was like, that is so brilliant. Like, why hasn't anyone else done that? So I'm really glad that you and Jane moved forward with the idea. I think it's very beneficial to this entire industry, and a win for the publishing industry and subscription boxes.
Yes, I do too. Yep. Yeah, that's why I was like, we have to do this. Somebody's going to do this before us. We have to do this.
Right. And this is such a unique topic too for the podcast. So I want to just thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about your story and how you came up with the idea and how it can benefit our listeners. Is there anything that you have in closing that you'd like to share? Again, we can make sure all those links are in the show notes for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I understand, as an entrepreneur, I know what it takes to launch something and to keep it going. And so, burnout is such a huge thing, particularly for startups. So as you're doing this, be sure to take care of yourself, get the best rest you can, be sure to pay attention to your emotions and your nervous system so that you don't burn out, so that this business of yours that you're just starting out, it succeeds and soars.
Oh, I love that. Great parting words of wisdom. I think you'll be glad to know that in Subscription Box Bootcamp, we do have self-care as a module in our launch module, because I think it's so important. We pepper in pep talks because mindset, and then we definitely tell our students, do not sit in front of your computer at launch clicking refresh for 2 hours on end, because you're just going to burn out. So I appreciate that that is such a big part of your message, and I can't wait to dive into your book.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you so much again. Listeners, I hope that you felt inspired by this. I hope that you reach out to Indie Book Box if you are a subscription box that actually sources books. This feels like it could be a one-stop shop for you. So again, thank you for listening today. Check out the show notes for all of the links, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.